name is Jason DePrima, and this is going to be a presentation looking at some historical trends as far as academic performance in Columbia Public Schools. We'll look at a few things, specifically the state-administered MAP test scores, as well as some of the iReady scores that districts use to evaluate reading and math in students, and a few other academic performance measures. All data was taken off the Columbia Public Schools Tableau Dashboard scorecard. So to give an introduction to the scorecard, the Columbia Public Schools scorecard is intended to inform the public of district performance in a number of key indicators. These indicators were chosen by Columbia Public Schools based on areas of interest identified by our community and school district employees, as well as state performance indicators. The data provided regarding certain subgroups, Black students and free and reduced lunch students, is intended to be transparent about areas Columbia Public Schools is focused on for improvement. When talking about comparison districts, the following districts are what Columbia Public Schools considers to be comparison districts: Blue Springs, Fort Zumwalt, Francis Howell, Hazelwood, Independence, Jefferson City, Kansas City, North Kansas City, Park Hill, Springfield, St. Louis, and Wentzville. It's important when we look at MAP scores to understand that while MAP scores are just one measure of district performance, and there is nuance in examining scores and discussing underlying factors that contribute to performance, they are still how we measure our district's performance to other comparison districts, and we can see discernible trends. On this slide, we're looking at the MAP scores specifically related to math, and it's broken down into all students, Black students, and then free and reduced lunch students. What we're looking at here is Columbia Public Schools ranking compared to those comparison districts mentioned on the previous slide. These are the 2020-2021 MAP scores, and as you'll see here, this blue line is Columbia Public Schools, and all the other green lines are the comparison districts. In 2020 and 2021, Columbia Public Schools ranked 9th out of 13 comparison districts. That was actually a decrease, down from 7th in all years dating back to 2015. When we look specifically at just Black students, CPS was 8th out of 13 in 2020-2021, which was an improvement from previous years, where CPS had been no higher than 12th going back to 2015. When we look at free and reduced lunch, Columbia Public Schools ranks 10th out of 13 and has never been higher going back to 2015. As you can see here in these graphs on the bottom half of the page, this just shows trends in the MAP scores, looking at total students, Black students, and free and reduced lunch students. The numbers are not as important as the arrows you see there, indicating that Columbia Public Schools has trended downward since 2016 in all areas except for the slight uptick in math for Black students in 2021. When we look at the MAP scores for communication arts, similar slide, different content area. So you see here that in 2020 and 2021, Columbia Public Schools ranked 9th out of 13 and have been no higher than 7th going back to 2015. In communication arts for Black students, Columbia Public Schools ranks 13 out of 13 and has every year going back to 2015. For free and reduced lunch students, Columbia Public Schools ranked 11 out of 13 in 2020 and 2021 and has been no higher than 10th going back to 2015. Again, looking at the charts on the bottom half of the page, we see a downward trend every year since 2016 within each subgroup. MAP scores are not the only way that we measure academic performance. The district also uses a program called iReady to assess reading and math levels. The top row you see here is reading overall for all students. The middle row is reading at the 3rd grade level, and the bottom row is math. Again, not necessarily looking at the numbers, but rather the trends. In every single component, CPS is seeing a downward trend and has since 2016. When we look at MAP scores and we look at the district compared to the state averages, what you're looking at here are 4 different years: 2020 and 2021, going all the way back to 2016 to 2017. On the left, under the blue, it's Columbia Public Schools. On the right in each chart, in the green, is the state average. What we're looking at here is the percentage of students who are below basic proficiency. That is the light blue color to the far left in each of these measurements. What we're looking at here is also the content area. So we have English language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. These red arrows indicate a content area or grade level where Columbia Public Schools' percentage of students that is below basic proficiency is below the state average. What you see here are red arrows every year in almost every single category. For example, here in 2020 and 2021, the only content area where CPS outperformed the state was Algebra 1. In 2018 and 2019, the only content area where CPS outperformed the state was Map Alternate. Again, if you look at every single year, the number of red arrows far surpasses any green arrows, showing that overall, Columbia Public Schools in all content areas and all grade levels has more students below basic proficiency than the state average. Again, looking at the Missouri Assessment Program, the MAP data for state averages, here we see all grades English Language Arts proficiency. In 2018, Columbia was on par with the state average as far as percent of students who were advanced. In 2019 and then in 2021, Columbia Public Schools dropped below the state average. For all grades math proficiency, Columbia Public Schools was above the state average in 2018 and 2019 and fell significantly below the state average in 2021. When we look at all grades science proficiency, the only 2 years provided were 2019 and 2021, and there was no state comparison for those years, but we did see a decline in Columbia Public Schools from 2019 to 2021. And then in all grades for social studies proficiency, in 2021, the only year given, Columbia Public Schools was below the state average. Just a few other things to consider. CPS Academic Progress District Goals. The goal of CPS is to catch them up and advance them further, meaning students will achieve academic progress. When we look at reading from 2018 all the way to 2021, whether it's Black students, IEP, 3rd grade, 8th grade, or all, we've seen a decline. You see the same in math, a decline in all segments from 2018 to 2021. Looking at ACT scores and the percentage of graduates who took the ACT and scored at or above the national average on composite, CPS has actually been above the state average for several years. Interestingly, in CPS, 54% in 2018, 51% in 2019, and 54% in 2020 scored at or above the national average. Relatively flat. When we look at the state average in 2018, it was 41%, 45% in 2019, and 46% in 2020. CPS remains flat while the state is trending in a positive direction. Looking at ACT composite summary, 59.4% of graduates in the state took the ACT in 2021, compared to just 54.2% of Columbia graduates. However, Columbia's average composite score of 23.2 is higher than the average composite score of the state at 20.9. When we look at advanced placement, the number of AP courses taken and students enrolled, we see a relatively steady increase in CPS minus 2021, where we took a step back. You see the same thing in the number of courses taken and the number of students that are taking AP courses. Looking at dual credit, number of classes where college credit was awarded, we saw a steady increase up to 2020 and then a steep decline in 2021. Finally, when looking at graduation rate for Columbia Public Schools, in 2020 and 2021, CPS ranked 9 out of 14 in comparison districts and has not ranked higher than 8th since 2015. We recognize that COVID has taken its toll, but what are the plans to catch them up and advance them further?